Hey everybody, welcome back. Assuming that you're living in a live stream linear fashion, which of course is not necessarily true. Right. So, the first thing I want to do is to reassure those of you who were with us 5 minutes ago that I did in fact do the drawing for the giveaway books. I only remembered to do it after I had left you. So those are going to be going out. Right. So the next question that we're looking at today is one that we discussed a lot at the Face Interface conference and the New Script Incubator discussion just a few days ago out of Stanford and the Silicon Project that is running that conference. The issue being, and Jerry also touched on this earlier today, what do you do about endangered writing systems when there's little commercial incentive for people to help develop them, digitize them, etc.? If the large language and type companies and the digital companies are not going to be interested in a market that is only 30 or 40 people and who are almost invariably not affluent, then who's going to do that? Just recently, I and some other of my colleagues have started working with the Wikimedia Foundation. And I suspect, like many people, I had no idea just how many activities the Wikimedia Foundation is involved in. But also, I had no idea that the Wikimedia Foundation might be, in a sense, a way of interactively working with communities to create platforms for them. And so I interviewed Satdeep Gill, who can't be here because he's on the other side of the world, and that would be really inhuman to be expecting him to stay up this late. But I interviewed him a couple of days ago, and I'm going to ask Alec to play the interview now. And afterwards, if you have questions, then I'll take them down and pass them on to Satdeep directly, or if I can answer them myself, I will. Okay, let's have the video. I am delighted to have as my guest Satdeep Gill, who is a program officer in culture and heritage for the Wikimedia Foundation. And Satdeep, you and I have been working together now for probably a couple of years. And every time I talk to you, I discover another division that the Wikimedia Foundation has and another project that's going on. So can you just first of all give me a sense of what the Wikimedia Foundation does beyond what most people know, which is Wikipedia?
Yeah, so thank you so much, Tim, first of all, for having me here. I'm based in Punjab, but these days I'm traveling and near Mumbai. Um, so about the Wikimedia Foundation, it's a medium-sized organization. I'll say about 700 people we have here, and a few different departments. Your question is what it does beyond Wikipedia. Well, I'll narrow it down further. Most people know it about English Wikipedia. And then so first of all, there are so many different Wikipedias, different language versions of Wikipedia that we support, that we provide the ecosystem, the infrastructure for. We have a product and localization team, which was earlier one of the sub teams that it has now was called the language engineering team, which has been working specifically on making our environment, making our infrastructure more welcoming to different languages and scripts. And they even went on to create typing input methods own Wikipedia for several different languages, like a few dozen at least, as far as I'm aware. Because that's in the early part of the in the 21st century. That was a big challenge for many people, uh, typing their own language on the internet, which I'm also one of the people who faced it. And even when I was teaching others to contribute to Punjabi Wikipedia, which is my native language and my native Wikipedia, that was the first thing I taught people like a few years ago. I had to teach them, okay, you download this software or this tool or this on wiki functionality. This is how you change it. This is how you can write your own language, in your own script on the internet. So that's one of the things that providing that system, even creating that technology, and as of today, there is a Wikipedia in more than 330 languages of the world. So it's one of the most linguistically, as well as in terms of scripts, most diverse projects on the internet.
So, yeah, that was going to be my next question because one of the challenges facing minority communities who have their own language, which may be endangered, and their own script, which may be endangered, is that they may be few in number. They're certainly almost bound to be not the most affluent communities. And so companies that have a commercial incentive don't have a good reason for saying we need to develop tools for this particular community. And so consequently, one of the things that has developed is what is sometimes called the digital divide or digitally disadvantaged communities for that reason. And so the Wikimedia Foundation, as I mean, you described as medium sized, but it is a global nonprofit. In a sense, you are in a much better position to start thinking in terms of communities that have endangered languages or minority scripts.
Yeah, definitely. And we are thinking more and more about it. But still, we think of ourselves as a tech organization firstly, but then we're also doing a lot of community engagement and um, uh, community development as well. But the main focus has been overall on all these years has been uh, on building that infrastructure that anyone is able to use. So it is completely open. If any language community or any person at all on the web want to bring their language on the internet, as long as it's a recognized language. We follow some protocol there, so someone can't just invent a language and say that I want a Wikipedia in this new language. But with some caveat, it welcomes anyone who speaks a language and has a few other people with them to come up, build their own project, and it has some core infrastructure that anyone is able to use, um, and they can get started. And we've been doing some experiments on how we can actually support them even further. So currently it's at the level that we provide them with the infrastructure. We do some lightweight support also, but now we're thinking more and more into how do we remove further barriers? Because even in terms of providing the technology, for many communities, accessing that technology and understanding the technology is also a barrier. So, like, how do you provide training to them,
Ah,
and
yeah.
and engage other regional partners that can help them guide in this process is also something we've been thinking more and more about recently.
So, can you give me an example of an ethno-linguistic community that came to you saying, we want to build a Wikipedia page in our own language using our own script? Can you give us one example and kind of walk us through that process.
So I'll actually take the example of not a Wikipedia, but a Wikisource project. So Wikisource, as it's again, part of the Wikimedia ecosystem, what we say. People know mainly about English Wikipedia. Then I told you this, several hundred Wikipedias, and then there are about 80 Wikisource projects. Wikisource is a transcription platform. So what it does if you have literary heritage in your language, which can mean like public domain books, so books which are out of copyright or manuscripts, you can create your own Wikisource project. So language, which I've worked a lot with, and I love that community a lot. The language is the Balinese language, and I know a lot about that, so that's why I'm talking about that case. So Balinese language, even though today it's being written a lot more and more in Latin script, historically was written in the Balinese script or the Aksara Bali,
Right.
and they had their collections digitized. So their manuscripts, they have a vast manuscript collection. There are community custodians of Balinese manuscripts. So some people have 10 manuscripts in their house, and in one village, and in another village, there is one more priest family, which is also a custodian of 20 manuscripts. So the community went in and digitized them with several different partners working on this mission. And this was like way back in 2010 or so, but it was considered that it's one of the few languages for which most likely more than 90% of their literary heritage has been digitized. That was some estimates that it's a vast majority of their manuscripts were digitized, which meant digitized here meant scanned. So they
Right.
were scanned, they were put on the Internet Archive, but they were not searchable because they were only in images, so not
Right.
in text form. So yeah, this was Internet Archive, and Internet Archive did fund an organization to build a keyboard for them, an on-screen Balinese keyboard for the Balinese community, and they had a separate website for it back then. But then eventually they came to Wikimedia. They got a funding from Wikimedia Foundation to develop that functionality for the community to type using that own keyboard on Wikisource. And then the community then brought, I think, about 3,000 of those manuscripts from Internet Archive to Wikisource, and then they produced transcriptions of them in the Balinese script. And
Right.
then we also added a transliteration. Like they also worked on that. We supported that functionality because the majority of the people today do not read Balinese script as much.
Right.
So we also added a transliteration into Latin script as an option there, so people can read both simultaneously. And that's one community that has thrived a lot on Wikisource, on Wikimedia platforms. And interestingly, next month from 14 to 16 February, we are organizing Wikisource conference, and that's going to happen in Bali because of this extensive work that the Balinese community has done.
And I think it's worth pointing out here to anybody watching that the place of these manuscripts and writing in general in Bali is one of extraordinary respect. And so
Oh,
when you
yes.
talk about the community involvement, every year on Saraswati Day, people take out their palm leaf manuscripts and they clean them off and repair them if necessary. The degree of respect and veneration for writing in general and for the traditional Balinese script and for these manuscripts, which are all or almost all sacred texts.
Mm-hmm.
All of that means that they have the kind of commitment to their own written culture that makes them sort of perfect candidates for coming along and using your tools for this purpose.
Yes, definitely. So this has been a great success, and there are many other success stories where people have been um, writing, especially in also in contexts where a language is written in multiple scripts.
Ah,
So we also have Wikipedias where you know like there's a Konkani Wikipedia in India, which is written in three different scripts, and then we then have those systems where people can write in different scripts, and and it can be transliterated. And there are also many European Wikipedias also. If I'm not mistaken, I think there's a Serbo-Croatian Wikipedia written in both Latin and Cyrillic script.
so another thing that really interests me that you and I have talked about over the last couple of years is the fact that once we tend to think of a Wikipedia page as being somewhat passive, as being a repository for information. But you and I have talked about the fact that once you get a community that creates a Wikipedia page for itself, in a way, it then becomes a sort of an active agent in in sort of cultural revival and community connection. Can you talk a little bit about how the page itself starts to act as like an invitation to that community?
Yeah, definitely. So I can give the example of the Punjabi community itself, because I have a very direct connection with it, and I've helped to bring it as well. Um, so yeah, like when I started editing Punjabi Wikipedia way back in 2009, 2010, there were only about a few hundred topics, not enough content in them. Then when we started writing more, not only we were able to invite more participants, more contributors on Punjabi Wikipedia, but then it also invited university professors who then gave their students uh, instead of written assignments, they asked them to write on Wikipedia.
Huh,
And and then like now we for like we consider like we've grown slowly, but now we see like a few million page views on Punjabi Wikipedia, growing from a few hundred topics. It has already grown to a few million page views per month, and it's happening for many other languages I see. Like it slowly kind of in a way legitimizes that language,
right,
and gives other people also gives them a pride about it, that okay, our Wikipedia exists in our
right.
language, and we can read, and we can access information. But one thing to note also alongside is that some languages there's a difference of content which people access on different wikis. Uh, like in some contexts, like in multilingual contexts like India, um, on Punjabi Wikipedia, people tend to read more about topics that are inherently about Punjab region and its culture. But then if someone is reading about let's say Britney Spears, they are more likely to read it on English Wikipedia than they are, even if they come from Punjab region. So there are like a lot of other factors also. But but yeah, in a nutshell, it does help them connect them with their culture more, because that's what they come to. They have to come back to their own Wikipedia to read more about the information that's more cultural.
Um, I may be misremembering, but if I remember correctly, over the course of the last couple of years, there's also been the development of a Sundanese Wikipedia page from Indonesia, and just by
Mhm.
way of explanation, this is sort of a remarkable example in that over the last 350 years, Sundanese, the province of Sunda is the western half, roughly speaking, of the island of Java in Indonesia.
Mhm.
And their language, they have their own language, but it's been written in Arabic, it's been written in Latin. And in the 1990s, there was a very sort of serious community debate about how the Sundanese spoken language should be represented in writing. And they actually revived a version of Old Sundanese, which hadn't been used for more than 300 years. And
Hmm.
so here we have a situation where within a couple of decades, we've gone from this script essentially being purely historic to this script being used on a Wikipedia page to represent this culture and its historic roots. And by being there and being a wiki, in other words, being interactive, it then becomes an opportunity for kind of the collection of cultural artifacts, as I understand it. So, as I understand it, there's also the Wikipedia becomes an opportunity for gathering photos and sort of a cultural heritage center in that respect.
Yeah, definitely. So there is a media repository of Wikipedia called the Wikimedia Commons. So that's where a lot of these images do get stored, and then they get displayed on Wikipedia, and people can write further content around them, and add these images or other media files also. And you're completely right. It does um, provide that space for communities for further revival of their languages. So revitalization is also an inherent part of this. And now, interestingly, I think probably this year, now we have a Sundanese wiki source as well, where they're also bringing their old manuscripts in the old Sundanese script. So they're bringing them online as well.
That is fabulous. I didn't know that. That's great news. So really, we're seeing a kind of um, an expansion of the range of opportunities for language and script revitalization here. Um, if somebody is a member of a minority community and they have their own language or their own language and their own script, how do they approach the Wikimedia Foundation to make use of these tools and these processes that you have been developing to start that process of reviving?
Yeah, so first of all, like they don't need to kind of get in touch with an organization. They can just go directly um, on our organizing platform. Like it's a website. There's a lot of information there. If you just I think if you just Google creating a new Wikipedia in a new language, probably you'll stumble upon this page. But there is a page on Meta Wikimedia, uh, meta.wiki. So MetaWiki has a lot of information, but that's the place where you can request for new languages, for instance. And then there is a documentation on how you can start your own um, incubator. So that's the first step that every language will have to go through. So incubator is the space where after you've gotten verified, okay, that this language has an ISO code and does verify to be a separate Wikipedia. Incubator is the space, Wikimedia incubator, where the community you have to organize a few different people, and then I think the minimum number is three. If you get including yourself, if a person gets another two people and they're working regularly for, let's say, 3 to 4 months, they do get then eligible to get their own Wikipedia in their own language or their own wiki source or any of those projects. Um, but yeah, I do also realize that documentation, accessing the reading, and that can be complicated, and someone would like to some of the folks better uh, appreciate more if there is some mentorship also, which we do realize since there are so many moving pieces. So there is one organization which is forming right now called the Wikimedia Language Diversity Hub. It's a group of different kind of different organizations, people from all over the world. It is and its main kind of focus is to support language diversity, and they have these regular community calls where they provide this support. They also have one-on-one mentorship. I'm also a member of that hub while also being an employee of the Wikimedia Foundation. The hub gets its funding from the Wikimedia Foundation. So this Wikimedia Language Diversity Hub, if someone enters this into a search engine, they would get further information on how to contact and um, yeah. So there are some email addresses there basically that you can get in touch with, and they'll provide mentorship on how to get started.
Wonderful. That is great. I think that's everything that I wanted to ask. And I have to say, it's really inspiring and reassuring to know the extent to which you're thinking about um, the full range of possibilities of languages, the full range of possibilities of scripts, and the ways in which you're making this open to even a small number of dedicated community activists, because as we know, there are many such people in the world, and up until now, they really haven't had the tools to be able to sort of flourish as well as they might. Anyhow, thanks so much for joining us, and good luck with your work.
Thank you so much, Tim, for having me here. Lovely talking to you.
I'm calling a thank you to Satdeep across the world, even though he can't be with us. I've also been noting comments in questions in the chat. So I'm going to do my standard wrap up before moving into the workshop thing, which I'm so looking forward to. Right. I want to give yet another thanks to Alec Julian, who is running the whole show technologically, and to his wife, Patricia Julian, who composed our music. I would also like to thank the people who just within the last half hour have hit the donate button and contributed to the expenses of World Endangered Writing Day, which is not supported by grants or by corporate sponsorships, which isn't to say we would turn them down. It's just that they haven't happened because this is a bad time for language services companies for reasons that we can talk about if you're interested. And I want to talk about some book giveaways. So the next 3 book giveaways, as before, we're giving away a copy of the Atlas of Endangered Alphabets. I'm afraid we can only afford to send that to people in the US and Canada because of the incredible cost of sending stuff overseas. But we can afford to send overseas copies of these 2 books, which I'll show you right now, which are pretty remarkable. So some of you know about the Berea script created by a vet originally for the Zagawa people. And it's based on the branding marks used on camels to indicate ownership, which is why they have this very kind of uniform stroke weight throughout. You can imagine any of these symbols being stamped out as a brand mark. So this is the very first published work in Berea. So it's a primer in the Berea script for the Zagawa language. And needless to say, camels play a large part in this book. The other one, if you go to endangeredalphabets.com and on the blog, you'll see that I have given the annual awards out to people who are doing remarkable and sometimes even dangerous work to revive traditional scripts. And this year I've made an exception because one of our award winners is somebody who is not working with a traditional script, but a traditional language. And there are plenty of other people who are supporting that work. So this is sort of unusual, but this was such an incredible story that I really wanted to highlight it. We're talking about the Takelma language of the Cow Creek band of the Umpqua Nation over in Oregon. And the last speaker of Takelma died in, I think, 1931. And generally, because a language is actually a much more complex item than a script, once the last speaker dies, especially if they died a while ago, it's generally reckoned that it's almost impossible to reconstruct that language. And a few years ago, a recent high school graduate called Elizabeth Bryant applied herself to some notes and recordings that were made 100 years ago of this last speaker, and she was able to reconstruct the Takelma language and is now teaching it. I think this is utterly amazing and extraordinary. This is one of the learning books for children in the Takelma language. So I am going to do the pencil in the list once again, and registrant number 6, registrant number 84, and registrant 201. I'll be contacting them and saying, are you interested in one of these books?